I'm Amanda April, and I'm part of the Africa Regional Resilience Hub team. And I'd like to officially welcome you to the third day of the 4-day program of online events that are being run through COP27, actually, it's Resilience Hub. We're welcoming you to this session. It's the second session for the day, and the overall aim of the Resilience Hub, or rather the regional resilience hubs, is that we are collecting information and key messages, primarily from underrepresented and usually underheard constituencies and local voices, taking these up to COP to be heard on the global stage in Egypt and further on as well. So we welcome you to the session via the AFLP, and I think Sihle and Roy, and I see Josh is also here, will be taking us through and introducing the speakers, the panelists, and the program for this session. And yeah, please leave your messages and comments in the chat box. I think we do have the leeway to do that throughout the session, but I'll leave it over to the AFLP team to provide guidance on how you want to manage comments and chats as the session progresses. And that's it from my side. And I'll hand it over back to Sihle. Thank you. Welcome again and enjoy the session.
Thank you, Amanda. Can you guys hear me? All right.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Good day, everyone. A warm welcome to you all. And thank you on the behalf of the Africa-led Partnership for taking the time and joining today's session. Before I go on, I have a quick reminder that we have an interpretation option for French. You can find it at the bottom. There's a globe at the bottom on your far right. So if you need interpretation, you can just click there, right? So yes, so my name is Sihle Matiwane. I'm the Secretariat Project Manager for the Africa-led Partnership. And I will be taking you through today's agenda, housekeeping rules, and just facilitating today's session as a whole, right? So before, next slide, please. So on today's agenda, the first thing, obviously welcome. The second thing, we'll have the panel presentation one, which I will pass the baton to Christian when that time comes. And then after that, we'll have a Mentimeter question that I will drop the link on the chat, and you can just click on the chat. Then it will take you straight to the question. And then after we'll have the second panel presentation, and then towards the end we have your question and answer section, and then you have closing, right? Next slide, please. And then on housekeeping rules, just the standard rules, to be quite honest. So it's firstly, please keep your mic muted and videos off when not speaking. And question will only be answered during the dedicated Q&A session. However, should you have like any question during the session, feel free to pop the question in the chat session below, as the chat session will be monitored through the session. And please raise your hands during the Q&A session. And yeah, the last rule is just feel free to unmute yourself and turn your video on when given the floor or when speaking. Next slide, please. So before we hit the ground running, I just have a quick question, a Mentimeter question that let me quickly drop it on the chat session for everyone actually to have. So essentially, it's a quick question just to keep the room engaged and active. So it's a quick question which asks, what is the first thing, I'm trying to drop it now. So basically the question is, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear food security? Again, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear food security? I am literally pasting the chat on the chat now. There you go. So what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear food security? Feel free to pop in whatever word or thing that comes to mind. There's no right or wrong. Yeah, you can fill in as much as you can. I think like 3 times. And should you have any problems with that, feel free to also pop in your answers in the chat below. Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds to populate that, and please notify us if you have any problems. Right, we're seeing healthy soils, we're seeing okay, what's the access the link? Okay, fine. If you're not able to access the link, please feel free to use the chat box option. So we're seeing local farming. I'm seeing agriculture, bioenergy, scarcity. Okay. Power, water, hunger, farming, and then on the chat I have farming and provision. Thank you, Florence. Okay, I think from what I'm seeing, I'm happy to see that we are all in the same wavelength when it comes to this topic. So I think I'll move on to the next slide just to put some flesh on the bone what soil organic carbon is. So thank you all for engaging and letting us know what the first thing comes to mind when you see when you hear soil organic carbon, but I'm glad to see that we are all within the same wavelength. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So just an introduction to soil organic carbon, just a quick one. So SOC refers to soil organic contents of soil, right? And healthy soils are important to food security, greenhouse gas mitigation and adaptation. So SOC, or soil organic carbon, is a measurable organic carbon and carbon matter in soil, and it plays an important role in soil fertility, productivity, water retention, and ecosystem services. And the last point is African soils are considered to be severely degraded. So with that, increasing organic matter offers potential for improving yield, soil fertility, and mitigating climate change. So next slide, please. So with that being said, I'll just leave that for now, leave that for now. And then I'll pass on over the baton to Kum Christian. Kum Christian, who is a Cameroon-based researcher and an activist for soil sequestration and sustainable agricultural system. He is a founder of SEEADO, a local NGO working with smaller farm holders to promote farming and system. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sihle, for that brilliant introduction and making our panelists and participants go through food security and soil organic carbon. That said, I will be presenting our panel presentations will go in two sections. The first part of it will run for 15 minutes and we'll have 3 participants, and we'll dive, after that we'll have take some questions, have a break, take some questions, and then we dive into the second part of the panel presentations. So after my presentation, I will be introducing the next presenter, and that's it. I will dive straight into my presentation. I'm presenting oil organic carbon dynamics that are coming from agriculture, forest, and other land use systems in Cameroon. This is purely based on research activities that have been carried out within this part of Africa. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. The first research we carried out was to find out soil organic carbon storage under different land use systems around the Mount Cameroon National Park. Here we took into consideration 9 land use systems, including forests, mixed cropping systems, maize, tea, rubber, palm, banana plantations, and cassava farms, and so on. So from this finding, we saw that soil organic carbon stock stored within the first 30 centimeters of these land uses were smallest within the rubber farms, and the highest within the forest. And our conclusion was also that we had significant differences between forest, between soil organic carbon stocks in forest and those of the monocrops, of some of these monocrops, including rubber, cassava, and palm. But some of these monocrops and mixed cropping did not show any significant difference with regarding soil organic carbon stocks in comparison with the forest. So we concluded that in terms of farming, this mixed cropping system showed the best soil quality with regards to soil organic carbon from this research work. Next slide, please. And the next research we carried out was to evaluate the impact of conservation tillage and cover croppings on soil organic carbon, and looking also at maize maize production. So what we did was that we took a system of farming which was purely conventional, dealing with tillage, complete overturned tillage with formation of ridges, and we introduced conservation tillage, simply strip tillage, alternating the strips of maize with other legumes, and we also apply cover. We did cover cropping, and also apply mulch on the farms. And from these practices, our realization, we did this for 4 years, and we realized that soil organic carbon stocks increased from the initial tillage conventional system. After the first year, there was no increment in soil organic carbon, but from the second year of practice, we started seeing some increment in soil organic carbon. And after the 4 years, we had increase in soil organic carbon from about 48.5 tons of carbon per hectare to about 57.5 tons of carbon per hectare in these farmlands. And we also monitored maize grain yields, and we realized too that there was also a matching increase with the production of maize in relation to these land use change systems within these years. Next slide, please. The next research work we carried out had to do with effects of land use change on soil organic carbon dynamics in the Bamenda highlands. And so here we studied land use change from 1980 to 2020 in this part of the country, the Bamenda highlands of Cameroon. And from this work, we noticed that there were significant changes in forest land use. That's forest land use significantly dropped. There was a significant drop in forest land use from 1980 to 2020 of about 358 hectares within this area. And we also realized corresponding increase in some other land use changes like farmlands, savanna, which was purely grazing land also, and settlement land also increased, swamp areas increased, and some water bodies reduced also. But based on this, the most increased land use among these was the farmlands, and the farmland increased by about 165,000 hectares. So even ahead of savanna land, which also saw an increase. And we had to estimate carbon stocks from these land use systems using the IPCC 2019 model. We estimate the carbon stocks within these systems, and we saw that the total carbon stocks within this land use system in the Bamenda Highlands have witnessed a drop within this 40 years period of about 8,500 megatons of carbon based on these changes in land use. So this purely tells us that the farming system that is being practiced here and all of these other activities are rather contributing to the loss of carbon in the soil. Thank you. Next slide. Next research we had to do was now a survey. We had to try to, we estimated whether these farmers, these smallholder farmers who are mostly responsible for land use change, whether they had any knowledge or they have practices of sustainable agriculture within them. But when we investigated the type of farming practice that was being carried out, we saw that tillage with the with ridges formation, which is the conventional practice, was being practiced by about 98% of the farmers. And these farmers, in doing this, the soil preservation methods that they were using, or that they are using, by 93% of them responded that they are using but chemical fertilizers to preserve the fertility of the soil. And all of us know more about the detrimental effect of this to the environment and climate change. And so we also investigated whether they have an idea or they are aware of the term of sustainable farming, where we saw that about 70% of them said they had an idea and even defined sustainable farming, where we have most of them define sustainable farming as farming practices that maintains the fertility of, that improves the fertility or maintains the fertility of the soil. And so from there we could conclude that they were aware of sustainable farming, but perhaps they lack the capacity or the ability to implement these sustainable farming practices, which will go a long way to curb some of these forest loss in soil organic carbon that we witness in the area. Next slide, please. Now, the other work we did, which is probably the last work presented here, we also investigated the dynamics. What are the dynamics in soil organic carbon stocks and global warming potential under two farming systems? We considered now a sustainable farming system and a conventional farming practice of tillage with the formation of ridges that is practiced within the Bamenda Highlands. So what we realized is that the sustainable farming system, in terms of soil organic carbon stock, because we did this practice in 2 years, we realized that soil organic carbon stock within the sustainable farming system was rather increasing, while that of the tillage with the formation of ridges with the conventional system was reducing. And in terms of global warming potential, the sustainable farming system showed a negative of about 122 tons of carbon dioxide equivalents per hectare in the global warming potential under the push-pull technology, which is a sustainable system. And then we also realized in the tillage with the formation of ridges system a positive impact on global warming, a positive contribution on global warming. When we also compared the maize yield within the second year of farming, we realized that the sustainable system showed a significant increase in maize yields higher than that of the conventional tillage with the formation of ridges system. And we concluded this by looking at the greenhouse gas intensity, which also matched exactly with the global warming potential. So this tells us that these systems of farming, this tillage with the formation of ridges system of farming that is highly practiced within the Bamenda Highlands is seriously contributing to our climate change and seriously also contributing to loss of soil organic carbon within the land use, within the Bamenda Highlands. So those are some of the works we carried out just to review this during this seminar. And I will immediately pass over the panel to the next speaker, who is Nuru Mohammad. Nuru Mohammad Adam. Nuru holds a diploma in forestry and a BSc in natural resource economics and management, and an MSc in climate change and development. Nuru is an associate forest researcher and forestry and climate change case team leader at the Afar Pastoral and Agropastoral Research Institute. He is also the focal person for the GIZ SDR Afar Soil Rehabilitation Project, working with measurement, reporting, and verification improvements in soil organic carbon in the Afar region of Ethiopia. So, Nuru, I hope you are there. You have the floor, please. It seems like we may be having problems. Is Nuru there?
Nuru, you muted if you are trying to speak, so you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, so we go ahead. Is Justin Shirima available now?
No, Justin is still trying to sort out his Zoom.
Okay, then perhaps we move to Theresa Kinkese. Is she there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you so much, Theresa. So while Nuru and Justin are preparing, we will listen to Theresa. Theresa is the project manager and senior policy and sustainable advisor in agriculture and nutrition for the GIZ Agriculture and Food Security Cluster in Zambia. She has over 10 years of experience providing technical policy and strategic advice, working with government and non-governmental institutions in various topics, namely agriculture, rural development, climate change adaptation and mitigation, agricultural finance, value change, development, gender mainstreaming, and food and nutrition security. That is the profile of Theresa, and she's quite rich in this domain and will talk to us. The floor is yours, Theresa.
Thank you very much, Christian, and lovely to meet everybody online. As I've already been introduced, my name is Theresa Kinkese, and I work with GIZ under the Agriculture and Food Security Cluster. We can go to the next slide. So I'm here today specifically to talk about Zambia, because that is where I live and that's where I'm currently working, and to give you an overview of the work that we are doing, of course, as GIZ, also working with the different government institutions, especially the Ministry of Agriculture, on the topic of soil carbon, soil organic carbon, also how to improve soil health. So just a bit of an overview of the agriculture sector for those that may not be so familiar. So our agriculture sector is declared and is one of the vital areas for economic transformation and job creation and food and nutrition security. And this has been put out in our 8th National Development Plan. In terms of agroecological zones or rainfall areas, these are into 3 different regions, from low, medium to high rainfall. The agriculture sector is very important as it provides over 70% of our farmers' livelihoods. Unfortunately, they're currently low yields, and also it doesn't contribute so much to the GDP due to low productivity, which is there. So as of 2021, by a research that was done by the Indo Agriculture Policy Research Institute, it was indicated that so far the percentage was 2.7%, which is quite low. The next slide, please. So why exactly do we have underperformance in the sector, and what leads to low yields in particular? So we have the excessive use of fertilizers, which degrades our soil. I think Christian gave a good background, especially on how the soils are and what practices to do or what leads to degradation. And also there's lack of sufficient investment in research and development, inadequate access to extension services that can provide further training on what is needed to get more knowledge on how to improve your soil organic carbon. We also have, of course, the negative impacts of climate change that come, such as droughts and floods, and also unsustainable land practices, such as the conventional practices, which Christian mentioned. The next slide, please. So what exactly is the current status of soil health in Zambia? In general, our soils are comprised, they have low soil fertility, hence the low yields. And then once the soils have low soil fertility, of course, moisture stress is very big as the water retention capacity is not too high. So what are some of the factors which lead to this poor health? We have, of course, monocropping, where you grow one crop from year to year. In our case, it's usually maize, which most of the smallholder farmers grow. And also the aspect of burning crop residues, which are not reincorporated back into the soils, ridging or plowing, which are part of the conventional methods, and also excessive use of chemical fertilizers. Next slide, please. So in working with the government and also with GIZ, we do encourage and also promote specific measures to increase soil health for improved food and nutrition security. In this case, the interventions that we take are meant to improve the soil fertility, also improve the yields, thereby should contribute to both diverse diets and leading to food and nutrition security of the country. So the key aspects, of course, which we look at is training and capacity building of the farmers, cooperatives, also agriculture extension agents on sustainable agriculture practices. And in particular, we look at aspects of crop rotation, intercropping. I think also Christian also mentioned part of that already. So here we look at incorporation of end-fixing plants or cover crops, and also intercropping with other legumes which can add nutrients to the soil, for example, Phaidabia or Bida. We also promote agroforestry, and this is, of course, the incorporation of trees to improve soil fertility. It can improve the soil structure. Some of the species that we use are Gliricidia sepia. Well, we also promote the increased use of biofertilizers to reduce the excessive use of chemical fertilizers, and also promote minimum tillage practices to ensure that ridging or plowing are less reduced, and this can be reaping or making of plant basins. And we also focus on crop or agriculture diversification. So the crop diversification is moving away from monocropping, while agriculture diversification is the incorporation of livestock or aquaculture on this farmer's field, which can then be used to add, for example, manures into the soil to help make them more fertile. And also the animals or livestock can increase as a source of protein, which can be used for human nutrition. Next slide, please. So some more measures as well, which are taken into account. We have improved fallow, and this is leaving your land without planting anything for a period of 1 to 2 years. So you plant a leguminous species there, for example, Sespania sesban or Tephrosia, which can improve the soil fertility. We also look at conservation agriculture, issues of residue retention, cereal legume rotation, minimum tillage, and also promote soil testing, because this would help also looking at how bad the soils are. It's important for soil testing to be done, then the proper recommendations could be carried out of what's needed to grow, what measures should be taken in order to improve the soil health. The next slide, please. What are some of the relevant government policies that we have, which the government has put in place for the Zambian government? We have, of course, the 8th National Development Plan, the 2nd National Agriculture Policy. We also have a climate change policy in place, and these focus on specific practices that can improve soil health, such as the sustainable land management practices, improving climate change awareness, because this is currently still lacking, and also integration of more climate change aspects into plans and programs. We also have, we also promote CA and climate smart agriculture. I know the two are separated, but climate smart agriculture, conservation agriculture falls into climate smart agriculture. The two are mostly separated for the purpose that conservation agriculture is the most, has been mostly promoted by the government and is given the highest priority as an intervention. We also have the Climate Smart Agriculture Investment Plan, which helps to show where and what amount of funds would be used in a certain climate smart agriculture climate smart agriculture intervention, specifically also for landscape management. Of course, we also have the nationally determined contributions, which look at diversification and climate smart agriculture, and also our national adaptation plan of action. We can go to the next slide. So what are some of the policies which we have that are under development, looking at the aspects of what has happened so far and how to further improve soil fertility? There's, through the Ministry of Agriculture, there's the development of the conservation agriculture framework. and also the climate smart agriculture framework. And as I indicated, these two are separated because one, although falls in the other, is given more precedence into a strategy which the country is currently taking. So one key aspect which these frameworks have been looked at to develop is to develop adapted measures, specifically which can be well adapted to 3 agroecological zones to ensure that the rainfall performance and soil quality, to ensure that the rainfall performance and what is the current soil quality can be taken into consideration and the right crops can be grown in the area. We're also currently in the process of developing the second National Agriculture Investment Plan, and this is aligned to the African Union Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program. A specific focus area is to improve soil fertility and sustainable land management, and there is also the process of coming up with a climate change bill so that there can be a legal framework for all interventions that are needed for climate adaptation and mitigation. Can go to the next slide. Thank you very much. This is the end of my presentation. And if you would like to get a hold of me after this, please feel free to look up my contacts right on this slide. My email addresses are here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Theresa, for that brilliant presentation. I don't know if Nuru Mohammad is available now.
I see on the comment section, he just said that his internet connection is slow.
Okay. Okay, I think he's coming now.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Perhaps if Nuru, can you hear us? Okay. Without wasting too much time, is Olitina Ratovo available?
Hello?
Okay,
Hello?
Nuru. Yeah, Nuru.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we did. Yeah, I think we already introduced you to the panelists and the participants available here. You could just go right ahead and present.
Okay, we can. Okay, we will start. We will present. Yeah, please. My slide, my present PowerPoint. Please display my presentation. PowerPoint.
It's displaying here. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, you can see it here. Go ahead.
It's on the screen, Nuru. Please go ahead.
Please. Hello.
Hi, Nuru.
Hi, Nuru.
I think Nuru is having problem.
Yeah. Please. My poor. Hello, yeah.
Yes, I can
start
get. Okay, if you can go ahead, if you are seeing the screen, then go ahead, Nuru.
You can start my presentation, but we didn't display the PowerPoint in Zoom. Can you display the PowerPoint?
It is displayed already.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I introduce myself. My name is Nuru Mohammad. I'm working in Ethiopia as in Afar Regional Research Institute as researchers. So based on that, my presentation is some part of in Ethiopia working in soil organic carbon or carbon market in Ethiopia. this study is part of that. So my introduction is soil is just as important or large terrestrial carbon pools on their ability to sequester, release, and carbon impacts are emission to the atmosphere and climate change are already obviously. So globally, soil degradations are driven by some expansion of systematic food production and natural resource and unsustainable existing land management in the soil to grow or livestock crop or livestock. Based on that, in our regions also similar in the last 15 or 15 years. So there is unmanaged or disturbed or agriculture activity especially in the northern part of Ethiopia and in the highland of Ethiopia for agricultural purposes and grazing land for livestock. So based on that, there is an initiation with government and other partners that are doing to rehabilitation projects. So one of this is area
Hi, Nuru.
Okay, I thought I was the only one not getting Nuru. Okay, it seems like we've lost Nuru. So internet connections are disturbing. Sihle? Hello, Sihle?
Yes, I think. Okay, so I don't know.
I think we can have the short break to just get the questions, and then we'll come back to the other presenters.
Okay. Yeah, totally agree. So thank you all. Just for a quick break, we have our second Mentimeter. Right. So second Mentimeter question that I have just added to the chat. Everyone should see it. So the question is, quickly, let me show my, yeah. So the question is, how do you think we can get African leaders to commit to increasing ambitions to related soil health? Again, I'll say that again. It says, for those who can't access the link. So it says, how do you think we can get African leaders to commit to increasing ambitions to related soil health? So please feel free again to just click on the link and it'll take you straight to the question and put in all your answers. I think you have like maximum of 3 or so, but if you have more answers, feel free to use the chat option as well. And for everyone or anyone who can't access the link for some reason, just feel free to use the chat as well. Okay, I'm seeing here. Clear objectives, policy decision, intersectoral approach. Let me see if there isn't any other. Right. Please keep them answers coming. more advocacy, accurate data, food, better consultation, influence from public, by having it incorporated in their budget as a must. Thank you again, Florence. More knowledge. Okay. I'm not seeing anything on the chat at the moment. Okay, one more from Sheila. Understanding the implications that unhealthy soils have. Okay. All right, so as we continue with the session, if you have like any more answers that pop up along the way, feel free to use the chat option. You can always like cycle back to this question and use the chat session. So I'll hand it over back to Christian for our second panel presentation. I don't know if that's okay with.
Yeah, that is okay. Thank you, Sihle. We will then go straight to listen to Olitina Ratovo.
All right, thank you.
Is Olitina available? Okay. So, the participants will be listening to Madam Olitina Ratovo, who is the Director of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation of the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development in Madagascar. You're welcome, Madam Olitina. We can't get you, Madam Olitina. Can you check whether you are on mute? Yeah, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself?
You can see you talking, but we're not getting any sound coming through.
It seems like she's muted. She should also mute herself. Yeah, she's muted. Don't know. This is.
I think maybe let's give her a minute to get her audio and move to
Yeah, thank you, Roy. We move to Wanjeri Obi. Is Wanjeri Obi there?
Yes, Christian, I'm right here.
Okay, thank you very much. Wanjeri Obi is a communication professional with proficiency in traditional and digital communication, experience in strategically engaging diverse stakeholders. She currently works with the African Technological Policy Studies Network as a communication and outreach director, and she's passionate about working with space of social justice, equity, and the arts. So we will listen to her presentation about the ATPS with healthy soils and food security. The floor is yours, Wanjeri.
Thank you very much, Christian. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. quickly move to the next slide. As you heard, my name is Wanjeri. I work with the African Technology Policy Studies Network, as the Communications and Outreach Officer. ATPS is a transdisciplinary network of researchers, policymakers, private sector actors, and civil society who work towards African development, environmental sustainability, and global inclusion. Some of the projects that we've been involved in and continue to be involved in that will speak to how policy can support farmers in soil management and food security are such as the artificial intelligence for agriculture and food security, mainstreaming ecological organic agriculture initiative, and the agriculture innovation program.
So sorry to interrupt you, Wanjeri. You're a little soft. Would you mind moving a little closer to your microphone, please?
Am I audible now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much.
All right. So what I've just described is a little bit of what ATPS does and a few of the projects that we've been involved in that could speak to what we are discussing right now. And what I said is that some of the projects that keep running and have run before that could speak into how policy can support farmers in soil management and food security are the artificial intelligence for agriculture and food systems, mainstreaming ecological organic agriculture initiative, and the agriculture innovations program. So in the next two slides, we're going to discuss a few ways in how policy can support farmers and sort of try to see how we can work around this. So the first and the very basis of how policy can support farmers in soil management and food security is by having the presence of these policies. Once these policies are in place, then those that are relevant can be enacted, and it can create a basis to understand what works, what doesn't work, and amend where need be. The second way in which policy could support farmers in soil management and food security is by providing a legal and institutional framework. In doing so, then it creates a basis where duties can be assigned to different authorities and different agencies, and this an environment where soil management and food security can thrive. The other way in which for soil management and food security is by recognizing the value of soils and also creating a platform where education can be given, where they are able to understand the societal and monetary value of the soils. This goes beyond selling of land as we know it in Africa, selling it for developmental purposes. And once the communities have understanding of how much value the soils hold, then they'll be better able to manage their soils. The other way in which policy can support soil management and food security is by solving the challenges of access and utilization of land, and in doing so, helping solve the conflicts that arise from different land uses. Conflicts between pastoralists and land owners, or rather farmers. We've also had the conflicts between developers and related way in which the different tracts of be used, then this will help in which these lands should be used. Another way in which policy can support soil management and food security is by encouraging diversification and technological innovation. I would also want to tie to the point of policies backing up and supporting technologies and innovations such as artificial intelligence. We are currently running a project that I have earlier mentioned on the responsible artificial intelligence for agriculture and food systems. And under this project, what we aim to do is to responsibly develop and deploy homegrown innovations to tackle food production challenges in Africa. So if there are policies that back up and support technologies such as artificial intelligence, then this will, in one way or another, assure us of food security. Another way in which policy could and should support soil management and food security is by advocating for practices such as agroforestry, which had earlier been mentioned by Theresa. So agroforestry practices and also by advocating for climate smart agriculture, this will enable soil management, soil protection, and as well as ensure food production, because these are the two. These work hand in hand. Another way in which policy could support is by encouraging practices such as irrigation, which reduce over-reliance on rain-fed agriculture, and it also creates the possibility of food being produced in areas where it would otherwise have not been. In that brief discussion, I believe one of the things that we've seen is that there are gaps, but not too many. It's just that the policies are not too clearly defined. So what could happen is that policy can be exercised with caution, and even as it's exercised with caution, what could happen is that flexibility can also be exercised. In this way, it will ensure that contributions that could otherwise propel security are put into account, and also those that would not too well contribute to soil management and food security are set aside and not work. That countries with insufficient or non-existent policies could review and address the existing gaps. And another thing could be that stakeholders should work together to improve, strengthen the communities on the policies that already exist. To get a bit more information on what we are doing and how we are contributing to policies, you could kindly visit our website, which is at the bottom of
Thank you very much, Sheila. Thank you very much, Sheila, for that presentation. I think we will have go straight to another presenter. We have Ermias Betemariam. You are welcome. Ermias is a land health scientist with research interests in land degradation, landscape ecology, restoration ecology, soil carbon dynamics, and spatial science. Currently, he is the land health scientist in the World Agroforestry Center, with major responsibilities of leading the land health surveillance and the land health decisions team. He is involved in the development of land health measurement and monitoring protocols, lead research projects across Africa, resource mobilization, and capacity development. So as we can see, he has a lot to tell us.
Yeah,
Ermias,
thank you very
welcome.
much. Yes, can you hear me? I'm just checking.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Wonderful, yeah. Apologies if there is any background noise because I'm in Western Kenya, Kisumu, for a field work, and then I'm just popping into one of the hotels and then sitting in the restaurant, and then I hope that will raise also your appetite. Yeah, so in a wonderful introduction, thank you very much. And I'm so much impressed by the topic itself, and then how really linking soil organic carbon to agriculture is really interesting. And then before I start my presentation, one of the things I observed through my research is that I think oftentimes we undervalue, particularly economically, the values of soil, particularly soil organic carbon. because some people value soil organic carbon from climate change mitigation points of view. Another one could be from agriculture, another could be another. So that's why it is so much fragmented. And then I think the holistic value and then, economic value, environmental value, and social value of soil organic carbon to me is undervalued. And then that's how sometimes it doesn't have enough policy attention. It doesn't have, enough investment and then finance attention and things like that. So I think we need to have also very, very strong environmental economists, so to say, in this kind of biophysical and the socioeconomic group to show the value of the true values of our soil organic carbon. Thank you. Next slide, please. Yeah, I mean, just to just briefly introduce what C4ECRAF is, I think this is, a newly merged, the two CGIR institutes, which is Center for Forest Research, and then which is dealing with forest, and then ECRAF is the World Agroforestry Center, and then we decided from this year on, 2022, we are merged as one, and then now we are working in the areas of, forestry and then agroforestry together. Now, it becomes an organization of about around 600 scientists working in this area. So I think the key global challenges that we would like to address are deforestation and biodiversity loss, climate and crisis, unsustainable supply and value chains, and then transforming food systems, and then extreme inequality are the key global challenges that these two merged institutions are really striving to address. Next slide, please. Yeah, I mean, when in the title we say soil, healthy soils, and then, when I'm, in my first statement, I said that, undervaluation of soil organic carbon is really something we need to be careful about. And then if you look at the three Rio conventions, for example, one is on climate, one is on biodiversity, another on land. And then, soil organic carbon really contributed for all these three Rio conventions as an environment, besides agriculture and the others. So that's why, when it comes to the land, because I am also the science policy interface member of the UNCCD, soil organic carbon is one of the indicators of SDG 15.31. And then also when you go to like climate group, NDCs, they are talking a lot about climate change mitigation, but very few countries, even in Africa, consider soil organic carbon in their NDCs. And then right now we are even doing a review of, key like 6 countries in Africa, why they are not really be able to introduce even in their revised NDC soil organic carbon. Because I heard every one of you mentioning about soil organic carbon, but practically very few limited countries globally, particularly in Africa, consider soil organic carbon in their NDCs. So there is huge missing link. Either we didn't advocate it very well, either we didn't really, we don't provide enough evidence. So we need to be very careful that we shouldn't really talk to ourselves, because it was not really bought strongly by nations, so to say, particularly with the climate people. Yes, I think the next slide, please. Yes, I think there is a lot of, underestimating the values of healthy soils for healthy planets, and then, in general. So during the United Nations Food Summit, one of the initiatives was Coalition for Soil Health. So this is a very interesting initiative, and then so many countries have been subscribing for it. And then I think we are trying to generate evidence. We are trying to make advocacy. And then I think we need to put, the whole aim of this cash is really to bring soils where it belongs in the global agenda. And then, if you look at it all the way from the local to the global things, I think soils are, and the values of healthy soils are not really well taken care of. So this is, a cash program by which, one of my colleagues, Lee Winiwiki, is, co-leading that one. And then Ratan Lal, if you know, I think most of you know him, he's, a well-known, writer when it comes to soil organic carbon. They are leading it together as a scientist. And then I think for the first time during the COP27, I think there will be, an event that recognizes soils as, and then Food Day. And then I think there will be a better link between now climate and then healthy soils. Next slide, please. Yeah, I mean, in this coalition, I think it is just started almost a year and a half or two. And then I think there are about 100 partners. And then I think a lot of movement is happening. And then we are also encouraging so many countries to endorse this coalition. And then I think one way, I see in one of the questions, how do we really make African governments really invest on soils? I think this is a kind of initiative by which we can really convince them to give enough attention to the soils. And then I also encourage all the participants in this group to go and then look at it, what do they do, and then if you want to receive like the newsletters and then any updates on this front, I think the address will be also coming on the next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, for in relation to COP27, I think soil health resolution is something which, we are asking countries to come with, and then Cash has drafted the soil health resolution, and then hopefully that would be presented at the COP, and then I hope, many, nations and then country parties would really endorse that resolution. So this is a kind of a global level, activity, so to say, to place soil health, where it belongs to, where it deserves. So this is, the addresses are there if you look, and then you can have the coalition webpage. And then I think you can read more about this, great global initiative. And the next slide, please. Yeah, I mean, this is my last slides. And then I think if everybody joins together, and then we have the evidence. I have seen so many interesting presentations today. But all these evidences need to really, well communicated at the right time in the right format for the decision makers. And then, if you ask me, as an African fellow, I think there is a lot of evidence, but the level of investment on soils and then on this kind of work is extremely low. If I just give you an example, maybe the investment on climate, and then the investment on land, I think land and soils get, less than 10% of the global fund that goes to climate. However, if you ask climate people, they will tell you that, how do you really mitigate or adapt for climate? They will go back to land. So that means, we have a common problem, and then more or less we have very obvious solutions, so to say. But the level of investment on healthy soils for me is really, really critical. If we don't do that, I think we will really, there's huge, opportunity costs, so to say. So this is the communication. I think there is also an email for Liu Wiki, and then who is really, co-leading the hosting the cash program. And then go to the website and then look at it, and then feel free to write back to us. And then we are really happy to get your feedback. And then with that, I end my presentation. And then I sincerely thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ermias. And I believe after this presentation, many countries will be able to join the Coalition of Action for Soil Health. Without wasting more time, our time is against us. We'll move to listen to Madam Olitina Ratovo. Is she available now? Hello?
Yes, I'm here. You can.
Okay, good.
Hello?
Good. Yes, okay. We can hear you.
So,
go ahead. Okay,
so good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to be with you during this afternoon. My name is Olitina Ratovo, and I'm the Monitoring and Evaluation Director of the Ministry of Environment and Development, Sustainable Development. What I am going to talk about today is achieving pledges and meeting local priorities, the challenge of food security in Madagascar. So in today's presentation, I'm going to cover 4 points. Firstly, we'll be looking at Madagascar context. Secondly, we will consider the problematic, the main problematics. Then we will explain our challenge to address land degradation and achieve food security. And finally, I'll demonstrate how we act at a national level to implement projects and programs to promote food security and land restoration. To begin with, let's overview about Madagascar context. There are
Sorry, you went on mute, Madam.
Yeah.
You're on.
You're muted again, Madam. Just on mute again. Hello, Madam. Oh my God, she can't even.
Only human capital measured by the education of the head of household play an important role. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. How about economical context? Primary sector today mobilizes more than 80.7% of the population and generates only a quarter of national wealth. Farming households are in a survival situation also and associated with the precarious food security. And the size of farming systems in Madagascar are very, very limited, with a national average value of 0.887 hectare and an average parcel size of 0.2 hectare per capita hectare. That needs and required an analysis of possible how to do the transition to the to restore land. Next slide, please. Now let me share with you the main roots of soil and livelihoods degradation in Madagascar. Firstly, the policy response to land degradation and food security. The need is to focus more on intersectoral approach in planning process and in implementation process. The key sectors are productive sectors as agriculture and livestock, mining sector, forestry sector. They are in charge of goods and services provided by land. But there are also coordination sectors and as land tenure sector, territorial planning sector. These are the hardcore, if you can say that, of the land management in Madagascar. Secondly, the livelihood security. The need is food security first, before all other possible goods and services provided by land. Thirdly, the natural capital accessibility. In Madagascar, we need to extend services, ecological services, economic and social at a local scale. And finally, market access. With the collaboration with the private sectors as income source to the household of farmers. In this way, we can increase income per household in one way to promote food security. Now let's see our challenges. Next slide. Our challenges to deal with the land degradation, climate change, and food security. Our challenges are to increase local and national capacities and knowledge to respond to changes. And the second challenge is to understand and address livelihoods issues. Next, please. In my last slide, I will share with you, I'm sharing with you what are we doing at a national level. What are we doing in the ground is to promote land restoration and focus on three results: ecological balance and food security first, then economic benefits and market access. Land restoration passed through landscape restoration implemented by integrated projects and programs with the main components, the best practice in the scaling up of the best practices in climate smart agricultures as conservation agricultures. Fire management, this component is one of the causes of the land degradation in Madagascar, the fire. Forest restoration and conservation through protected areas and reforestation programs. There is also one component very important: capacity building for the administration, stakeholders, farmers, access to new technology. So especially in Madagascar, we promote local technology. And finally, monitoring and evaluation with performance planification and monitoring system. This last point is really important in the way to promote the implementation of the 3 Rio Conventions about climate change, desertification, and biodiversity. In addition to that, the national policy of sustainable development. In Madagascar, we have all the frame that we need according to these conventions. For example, adaptive action plan to climate change, mitigation action plan to climate change, NDC according to Paris Agreement, the action plan to implement desertification conventions, action plan to implement biodiversity convention. And all these action plans include integrated projects or programs to implement them at a national level. To conclude, according to Madagascar context, the solution to promote food security and productive soil are based on policy decision, intersectoral collaboration, focus on the Rio Convention's objectives, monitoring and evaluation, and last not but the least, financial access to implement all projects and programs that are already identified. In this, thank you all, and I think that you are interested in what we are doing in Madagascar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Olitina. I think without wasting too much time, we'll move to Justin. Is Justin available?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to join you this afternoon, and my case, I will briefly present the farmers' experience in regard to soil fertility, farmers' perception. And just to get a quick introduction, as you see, Justin Shirima, I'm the CEO for the Tanganyika Farmers Association in Tanzania. Maybe if you move to the next slide. So I'll quickly say what is Tanganyika Farmers Association, which is in a short from TFA, is an oldest organization which was founded in 1935 in the country. It has a branch network and offices of presence in the 17 regions currently in the country. We've got a network of 5,000 farmers. They're all scattered in the country, all over. This includes small-scale farmers, majority, and few of the large-scale farmers. And a major role as an organization is the distribution of agricultural inputs. We are actually the voice of farmers when it comes to policy dialogue platforms, linking farmers with opportunities for growth and the market for selling the produces. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea quickly, I decided in this presentation to pick one part of the country, which is the southern part, and looking at the soil fertility from this publication, you would quickly see that about 75% of the arable land loses its fertility at a rate of 24 billion metric tons per year, which is a scaring position. And this poses a great threat when it comes to food security. Next slide, please. Just looking quickly at the major challenges with the farmers in the country. These are more or less the ones that are famous known, but climate change has impacted the yield heavily in recent past 2 years. Rainfall models are projecting less predictably with more unevenly distributed across the country. This leaves agriculture to be one of the unreliable sector and quite a risk activity when it comes to farmers' perception in the country. Prices for fertilizer, for instance, has grown up by more than 100%. Just to give you an idea, when you're looking at a bag of DAP, you see it was 25 USD in the previous 2 years, but has shoot up to 62 US dollars, which becomes expensive to do agriculture. Do cultivation and farming becomes expensive. The third challenge is this: the studies has revealed that potentially Tanzania's soil is suffering greatly deficiency of the NPK, the calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. These are the major challenges. Next slide, please. Looking at again, another challenge when it comes to farmers, and this is what we're experiencing in the farming: salinity and acidity soil are actually quite a challenge, especially when you're looking at our members and the small-scale farmers. Access to information on the soil pH is quite a challenge. So you would see that application for the fertilizer becomes a waste. And so this is quite a challenge when it comes to a farmer as an individual. Lack of adequate extension service. This is actually agronomist practice information that is missing when it comes to farming. The extension officers that we have in the country is missing presence in the farming areas. So a farmer is basically doing farming based on his or her own experience. So the application rates when it comes to fertilizer and pest controls brings quite a disaster when you're looking at it from the soil health perspective. Export ban, and this is quite a challenge when it comes to harvest and post-harvest. A farmer wants to sell the produces to the market, then always the government comes out with an export ban. You only confined to sell your goods within the country, and this is greatly affecting the maize producers. Where recently we got an export ban to maize in Kenya. Is quite a challenge. Sufficient, reliable, and affordable soil labs. When it comes to soil testing, getting an understanding of your soil status, there's quite a shortage of these labs. And whenever you access them and to a farmer's perspective, and this is an experience, it becomes a luxury thing to do. Next slide. And that's it. I think what I've tried to share is basically what is our experience as from farmers, a farmer perspective. Thank you, and asante.
Thank you, Justin. We are happy we finally had your rich presentation, which will definitely go a long way to boost soil organic carbon sequestration in Africa. And right now, we have gone through all the presenters. Apart from Nuru, we didn't have a complete presentation, but all the presenters have been able to present, and we are glad. We have just about 7 minutes left for our session, and we still have question and answer part of the session to go through. And so we will take this time to go through this question and answer session, or we first of all take questions from the participants. Are there questions from everybody, all the participants that are available? Okay, in the absence of questions, maybe questions will be coming up. We will discuss some basic questions among ourselves. Everybody is free. Hello?
Hi, Christian. Sorry, there was a question in the chat around, I think it was to do with your presentation.
Okay.
Somebody was wondering why soils under rubber plantations have low levels of soil organic carbon. Maybe you can speak to that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that question also was a question that when I realized the results of the research, I was also wondering the same thing. But rather unfortunate, I didn't go deeper to actually get clear research to understand the reason. But what I also think is that based on the way rubber is being managed, the rubber plantations are being managed, usually the rubber trees perhaps don't really grow big because of the tapping of the rubber from the stems. And so based on that, there could be some of those parts of the plant that would have decay in the soil being limited. And that could be, that could fall off and decay. That could be one of the reasons. And another reason could also be the kind of management practice that is going on, because probably I do think that from what we experience, the rubber plantations falling out of leaves is also rare and was not very frequent. And even vegetation growing under the rubber to even grow to an extent to die and decay was probably taken care of. So some of all of those things limited the amount of matter that could decay in the soil to improve soil organic carbon. That is just what I'm thinking, but I think, as I said, it needs detailed research for clear conclusions.
Thank you. And there's another question, what role do you see for the youth in promoting soil health? And I think this is for you or any of the other panelists.
Okay, so I will give the floor if there is any panelist that would love to answer that. What role do you see from the youth in promoting soil health? Anybody available to answer that? We don't have much time.
Yeah, I can respond.
Okay.
Yeah, so when we're looking at aspects, I think, of agriculture and issues of soil health, like for our case in Zambia, we have a very big population of youth. So what role do we see play in them is that once they are more aware and more educated, can contribute to the agenda of making sure that, of course, we have high soil organic carbon, they can be using the right practices, and at the end, of course, increase the specific yields that are supposed to be done. But also, as their youth, they can also play the role of lobby and advocacy to ensure that aspects of soil organic carbon are included into the relevant policies, or working with several civil society organizations, but also dissemination of information through their communities. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Theresa. And to add to that, from my own point of view, based on our research, the youths, I think the youths have a lot to promote soil health. Currently, we have so many youths engaging into agricultural studies, where they will actually study the best practices of cultivation. We know most of parents and organizations in the past, based on the smallholder farmers, particularly in our local communities, most of those practices are actually the conventional practices that are detrimental to soil health. And so if youth engage in studying agricultural practices, doing agriculture in a different way and fully engaging in agriculture, I think they will go a long way to actually improve soil health. They should champion the cause to campaign for the healthy soil. I think that's my own observation. Because based on my research work, I could see that most of those were actually knowledgeable about sustainable agricultural practices are the youths who were actually studying agriculture and practicing agriculture.
Can I add something, please?
Yes.
Is to also to promote best practices of soil restoration, addressing in the same time soil restoration and food security, in that way we can address the soil degradation problematics and food security in the same time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other response to that? Yeah, I can see some other person writing, engage youth in soil health discussions and decisions. That is good. Thank you. Do we have another question, Roy or Josh?
I think in favor of time, I think we can pass over to Sihle to wrap up.
Okay, so maybe we rapidly go through, if we can have 2 minutes to rapidly go through some of the questions we had. What are the barriers that are limiting conservation and rehabilitation, soil conservation and rehabilitation in Africa? And what are some of the opportunities or solutions to overcome these barriers? Some persons can rapidly respond to that so that
So Theresa here. So when we're looking at some of the barriers that are limiting soil conservation and rehabilitation in Africa, I think we need to look at key aspects of what are these technologies that are being promoted. So for example, if in our case, we're looking at conservation agriculture, it requires for you to have a certain level of, for example, funds to get your inputs, or even for minimum tillage, which most of the farmers would not have. So some of the barriers would be limited access to finance or credit to procure some of these equipments. And then if you're looking at issues of soil of residue retention, there may be low volumes of biomass when farmers are practicing, when farmers also have livestock and they need to feed that residue to the livestock. When it comes to specific opportunities or solutions that would be there, some of the solutions would be to, of course, provide a framework or affordable access to credit and finance, which does not have high interest rates for them to procure some equipment. Also enhancing awareness and knowledge on why soil conservation and rehabilitation is important. Then the last one, of course, is providing an enabling framework or policy environment, because currently most of the policies that are there may not explicitly indicate, for example, that this is soil conservation rehabilitation, but encompassing it that it is well articulated and shows as a government agenda priority would be some of the opportunities and solutions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And some other persons writing finance, capacity, and institutions. So I think, and I also agree with that, capacity, in particular with some of this climate smart agriculture, conservation agriculture that we've all spoken about here, needs to be enhanced, particularly in Africa with small scale farmers. And how then can we ensure that this knowledge and best practices and bad practices are reaching these farmers? How can we ensure that these best practices, the knowledge of best practices, are actually reaching the farmers?
I can respond if that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So Theresa again. So one of the key things which needs to be done is one, I think, documentation, which has not been done adequately to document what are these best practices or bad practices. So documentation would be key to ensure that they are also in a form which is easily readable, understandable for the smallholder farmers, based on, for example, what type of information is relevant for them. Other ways in which this could be done would be to set up farmer field schools. These provide a platform for knowledge transfer for the farmers, where they can showcase in the community, and people could act as champions or in the communities to disseminate this information. And another part is to ensure that the extension agents who provide the knowledge to the farmers, who provide technical assistance to the farmers, are well trained and have the adequate knowledge on effective soil conservation and issues of management, so that they're also able to transfer these, and trainings are incorporated into the curricula that they have to do with the farmers. Thank you.
Thank you, Theresa. I think I've been indicated that we are running right out of time, so much out of time, and we come to the conclusion and hand the presentation back to Amanda. I think that we are happy and we are glad to have received all the presentations, and we thank all the presenters and all the participants in this session. Amanda, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity, for making our works to be heard and across Africa and the world beyond.